Trump indulging in a baseless conspiracy theory about President Biden at the DNC.
He's going to walk into the room and he's going to say, I want my presidency back.
And falsely suggesting large Harris crowds were AI-generated fakes.
So that was some of NBC's reporting earlier this week about Donald Trump's false claim about AI-generated crowds. That claim struck Bernie Sanders, senator of Vermont, as particularly ludicrous and dangerous. According to the senator, if Trump can convince his supporters that thousands of people who attended a televised rally don't even exist, it won't be hard to convince them that the election results in places like Pennsylvania, Michigan, and elsewhere are fake and fraudulent. Joining us now, Chief White House Correspondent for the New York Times, Peter Baker. Peter, good morning. It does seem like Trump is laying groundwork here. These comments, as Senator Sanders mentioned about AI, also his belief that switching Biden for Harris atop the ticket is unconstitutional. Let's be clear. There's nothing in the Constitution about that. It seems like he's already preparing for another big lie.
Yeah, he seems increasingly detached from reality, and yet there may be strategy behind it, right? The idea that he is trying to once again, convince his voters that something untoward happened in order to explain a defeat. And that's something, of course, he cannot accept. He cannot accept the idea that anybody could possibly beat him, especially, I think, Kamala Harris. And so he has to find a way to explain it. He started this in 2020, let's remember, not after the election when his results came back in, but actually in May, I think, of 2020, when he began telling people any result other than his victory would be a sign of a rigged election, would be a cheat, in other words. This is his pattern going back years and years and years. He's never lost a contest that he acknowledged that he lost. He constantly comes up with conspiracy theories and made up versions of reality. And what he's doing here clearly is laying the groundwork. It actually suggests that he feels the heat and is feeling, that he may not be able to pull this off in November.
Yeah, and on that, we've seen a wave of polls that are all trending toward the vice president's way. And to be clear, we're still several months from Election Day. This is just a snapshot, but there's no doubt that Democrats have momentum. And Peter, I'm curious your take here. It's striking that how Trump continues to be flailing. He hasn't found any real successful attack line against Harris or a way to make this race about the issues that would be better for the Republican side.
No, I think he's frustrated a lot of Republicans who are watching this with great concern, right? They're seeing a candidate who's making stuff up, who is focused on the last candidate instead of the candidate he's actually facing at the moment, who doesn't seem to be, getting any traction on his campaign against her. There's plenty of, avenues of attack. Democrats have been prepared, ready, expecting him to go after her on the border, on inflation, to try to tie the toughest aspects of the Biden-Harris record around her neck. And yet instead, he seems to be kind of wandering off in this, old-fashioned, very, kind of tire reel of complaints that he has been making now for 9-10 years. And it actually accentuates the contrast, because the contrast that she wants to draw is a generational one. It's a fresh versus old. It's new versus stale. Even though she is the incumbent vice president, she's running, in effect, as a change agent against a guy who, for much of the public, has been around for a long time, and many people, according to polls, are tired of.
Yeah, it's an extraordinary inversion of what the dynamic had been just a few weeks ago. And Peter, so on that, I've got some new reporting this morning about President Biden, coming to terms with the idea that he's no longer at the top of the ticket, but still harboring some real frustration at some top Democrats, particularly House Speaker Pelosi, to a lesser extent, former President Obama and Majority Leader Schumer. Let's get your insights on that. And does it threaten at all Democratic unity they're trying to project at next week's convention?
Well, it's interesting, of course. He's going to be there at the convention on Monday night. That's when he's speaking instead of Thursday night. It's a bit of a demotion, obviously, and then he's going to leave. And that will no longer be Joe Biden's convention at that point. It will be Kamala Harris's convention and Kamala Harris's party. And you can only imagine how he's feeling, and you're doing good reporting on exactly that. I mean, and we're not seeing him very much in public. He has 5 months left of his presidency. He has a lot of things on the plate. He's obviously working on Middle East peace. He's trying very hard to get that ceasefire deal landed. But beyond that, he has been relatively out of sight. He went to New Orleans yesterday, and he'll go to Maryland tomorrow for the first joint appearance with Kamala Harris, and then basically he's going to retreat. He's going to take some vacation time. He's going to spend some time outside of the public spotlight. In some ways, of course, you could argue that he's trying to cede the stage to Kamala Harris to give her a lot of room to make her own case, to define her own identity. But on the other hand, I think you're right. I think of course he's unhappy. Of course it's a painful moment. It stings to have people that you thought were your closest allies, people like Nancy Pelosi and Barack Obama, seemingly, in his view, of course, pulling the rug out from under him. And it's not surprising that would be a particularly painful moment.
And one note on Pelosi, the president certainly frustrated with her, but also said he's told allies he understands why she did what she had to do. She's ruthless because she always puts the party first. Chief White House correspondent for the New York Times, Peter Baker. Peter, thank you as always. We'll talk to you again soon. And